At the end of the day, no one really cares about AI. It's like fun and exciting. There's a ton of headlines around it, but like as a business owner and operator, I just want the business to work. I want to make money. I want to grow. I want to scale, right? Yeah. And so just given sort of like my background and having been in the space for a while and my technical background, it was just a great opportunity for me to solve those problems. Like as an engineer, like I'm a problem solver. I like figuring out how do we make something better?
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Shipping Excellence Podcast. Today I have a friend here with me, Jason Macht, who is the founder of Whitespace Solutions. They specialize in helping real estate firms adopt and leverage AI technology to increase revenue. Welcome.
That's right. Thank you.
Yeah,
Good to be back.
I know.
We're running it back.
Round two.
Round
I know.
two.
Yeah. It's exciting.
It is.
I'm excited about the conversation today because we're going to talk about, a year ago we shot our first episode.
Yeah,
we were all starting, to adopt AI, and it was like the year of agents. It was maturing, and now it's like, after a year, what we're seeing in the real world.
It's wild. And what a day to record it, because I think they just dropped Opus 4.6. Yeah. We got to talk about, that's exciting. 1 million context window. I don't know about you, but I'm pumped.
I am. One of my engineers, he posted in our Slack channel today. He goes, man, he was like, they dropped Opus 4.6 on a day that my context limits reset. And I was like, that sounds awesome. And I saw it, like I was on a call and I was like, oh, that sounds awesome. I don't know what they're talking about. I want to read that.
Did I see they came out, Codex came out today too? Was it 5.3?
I don't know. I
saw
didn't see
that too,
one.
and I'm like, oh, good try, guy.
You almost had it.
You're almost there.
Yeah, the model wars are real, and I think I personally lean heavily on like an Opus 4.5 and 4.6 now.
Yeah, it's crazy. Reflecting to a year ago, I was like a pure OpenAI guy.
Yeah, same.
And then I started like playing around, and like that's the name of the game here. It's just like experimenting and trying things out. And now I'm like full like Claude Code.
Yeah,
I feel like it was like transitioning from like Microsoft like Windows machine to like Mac.
Yeah, I know.
And once you make that transition, you don't look back and you're like, man, it's just so much better.
Yeah, like I can't believe Dark Ages, right?
Yes.
Like the Industrial Revolution has come now.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot's changed. Like where do you want to start?
I don't know. Let's start with we're talking about Opus. Let's start with code quality and versus what it produced back in the day compared to now. Yeah.
So I think previously vibe coding has kind of been this thing out there. AI slop. There's a lot of noise out there. And I mean, you've seen that, but I think things have evolved very quickly, and like you're getting really good results right now. And there's still a lot of noise. And I think like the frame I like to look at it through is there's a lot of noise, but there's definitely a lot of value there, and like helping, a lot of what we focus on is like helping business owners try to figure out like, where is it actually going to add value? And like the quality of the outputs of these models are incredible. Yes. Now, I think where people kind of get lost is that you can't move away from the principles, like engineering principles, good product principles of like how you build these things, where you apply them, how you use them. It's not going to fix a bad business. AI is not going to fix all of your problems, but it can 10x your team that's already performing really well. And I think that's the exciting thing to see. And just these tools in the hands of the right people are going to be crazy impactful.
That's really interesting. My perspective on that is AI has given us the ability to move faster. And so what it does is it amplifies what you have in place. Mm-hmm. So one of the important distinctions is if you have bad engineering processes or practices, right, in general, it'll amplify that. So if you're if you're not adhering to code quality, or you don't really understand the problem that you're trying to solve, you get ambiguity and sloppy code still, even though the models are better, right? Because it amplifies what you're doing. So to your point, like if you have a really good engineering team and a good process to understand what you should be building, then you can move significantly faster today. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I'm seeing. And the benefit of the models now is you can give it, the way that we operate is we call it spec-driven development, which is not a new term. Yeah. But what's happened is our engineers have been freed up of the minutia of writing a line of code to figuring out what problem needs to be solved and how to solve it. Yep. And they can pass that context, and the AI can write the code.
Yeah. And I think that is like the big shift here that's going on fundamentally is like engineering and like product management and that like specialty is completely shifting because you get caught up in the minutia of like having to know the particular syntax for this particular language and this kind of and then like hunting down bugs. Like a lot of that sort of like cognitive load has gone away, and it's a shift to like the people that can think and like build the strategy and have a vision, and it kind of gives them the toolkit to actually execute that and remove all these like blockers that made that stuff really hard before.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's still hard,
Yes,
but much easier than before. And you can bring an idea to fruition much faster. And I think, you know, one of the things we were talking about before was around just the ability to like, almost like fail fast, right? Like, so your ability to like take something from a concept to MVP it, whether it's like a brand new products like what you guys build, or it's like just trying out tech in a business and some sort of automation, rather than that being like a 6-month or 1-year project
and $2 million
you can
later.
figure that out in like a week.
Yeah.
And it's either going to work and it's going to increase throughput and increase revenue for the business, or it's not, and you move on to the next thing. You try again.
Yeah, I like to say we now have the ability to move, to engineer at the speed of thought, or nearly the speed of thought.
Yes.
Right? Like, because the heavy lifting of building something now is offloaded to the models, right?
Yeah.
And most of the human energy should be spent on deciding if it's worth solving. If it is worth solving, what are our hypotheses, and then planning around that.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to another founder last week, and he was building some solution for an enterprise. And, the executive team wants to build, a solution to help their recruiting pipeline. And one of their product owners got involved later in the project and slowed things down pretty far. And he was saying the problem with that is, in her mind, it was like, we need to apply the traditional Agile methodology principles here.
Yeah.
And that world is gone, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're adopting this, that world should be gone, because, the people who are responsible for the direction of the business, right, they have an idea. They want to test that idea as fast as possible, right? And so these companies are starting to just shift away from slowing down the process to like, let's place a bet, test it, and see, to your point, how quickly can we get some feedback from this test, right? And that costs so much less money now because you don't have to spend hours typing on a keyboard. Yeah,
it's crazy. I had coming back to what you were saying a minute ago about like having that spec-driven process. That is kind of like the linchpin of how things are built well now. It's like the planning stage and like the critical thought that goes on in the upfront work in terms of like what you're building, how you're going to build it, and like where that's going to lead you. And like funny, like a random story, one of the clients I was working with, engineering background, love working with them. Like most of our calls go like 2 hours. They're scheduled for an hour, always 2 hours. And so like he was interested in like trying to learn Cloud Code, got him set up with his own Cursor account and like helped him like install Cloud Code. And he wanted to try to replicate like one of the things I was showing him. And he like sent me screenshots of like the website he built, and he's like, "Where did I go wrong?" It looked like when you cut out like pictures and kind of just like glue them all together, like it was a Frankenstein app. And he's like, "Where did I go wrong?" And I was like, "Look, I think if you're just trying to like one shot this, like it's not gonna work. Like you can get some pretty cool outputs, and if you play with some of the other tools out there, like the replets or the bolts, or even like in some of the UIs, you can one shot some like very simple basic stuff, which is cool and it's shocking. But is it gonna change your business? Probably not. To build like really effective products and tools, like you need that upfront planning and really mapping out all the interactions and the spec. And that's really how you're gonna get the best results. And so like the team's like ability to do that is kind of like the missing piece, or the thing that you really need to focus on. Yeah. So that was my answer. I was like, you need to like actually map it out, plan it out, make sure you understand, and you need to have all the principles, right? Like, what are the packages? Like what is the tech stack I need? What's the front end? What's the back end? You need to have an understanding of like the full context, because without that, that's where you get the AI slop.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. Like, so one of our engineers, he's our lead engineer. He's been responsible for helping us improve our delivery. And one of the things he's done is he has built what we call guardrails for our delivery process. And so I like to call it, we AI native a code base, right?
Yes.
And this is important because like if you put an AI model, using Cursor, Cloud Code, whatever your flavor is, on top of an existing code base, it's going to look at the patterns and it's going to amplify those patterns. So if there's bad patterns in there, you get a bad output, even if it's a new feature, right? And so what we do is, he goes and he puts in these guardrails on any code base or any set of code bases, and then he spends hours planning out large feature sets, right? And so he'll have a series of specs, and then he can feed that to a team of agents to go build it. And earlier this week, he said, "I've got it to where it's 99% ready to merge, to be tested," right? And I was like, that's impressive, right? And so we're rolling that across the team. But it is the engineering rigor that unlocks that, right?
Sure.
So you need to know you have to have the foundational knowledge of like, what database should you choose? What languages should you choose? What plays well together? What solves this problem? Because there are problems that some languages can't solve, right?
Sure.
Like we were processing large batches of like 200-page PDFs, 50, hundreds of them, right? For one of our clients. And that doesn't work really well in Node. You need Python for that, right? And so you need to know that, right? If you're traditionally a Node TypeScript shop, you need to know that Python is the solution for this, right? So all of that matters when you're going in. So it still does produce slop. The short answer is it still does produce slop. But the longer answer is if you use it right, you can get incredible outputs from it at incredible speeds.
What are you finding in like the work that you're doing? Well, I guess context for that is, are you generally building ground up new apps, or are you actually plugging into existing code bases and refactoring or bolting onto that?
We're doing a little bit of both.
Okay.
So, a lot of what we're doing is net new, and that's for, both products or, for businesses that are looking to use agentic processes where they previously had used human reasoning, right? And then some of it is going in and cleaning up some code bases, because you can use AI for that too, so that you can then move faster when you're adding net new features. And then so sometimes we will do that. We'll isolate a piece, put some guardrails around that in an existing code base and build on there.
And do you feel that these models do pretty well plugging into a new code base, or do you have to like add in some tooling to like help steer it or guide it or navigate around maybe some of the like legacy tech debt or whatever might be there?
Yeah, you definitely have to have the tooling, right? Because like it'll see the code base and say, this is how you've done it, so this is how I'm going to do it, right? Like that, one of the problems that still isn't fully solved, although we'll test it out with Opus 4.6, is like, if you still have these God components where you've got like, I don't know, 10,000 line file, right? That absorbs your context window pretty rapidly, right? And so sometimes you just carve those out. Like you don't even look at that, right? When you're building this
Just
thing.
like the engineers.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't touch that file.
Don't even open that file. Don't. We know it's there. Everyone knows it's there. Don't even look. Yeah, but I mean, if you focus on that too, though, you can decompose that a little bit at a time, right? So we've done that too. So
awesome.
Yeah, man, it's been fun. So you brought up this interesting idea when we were talking about recording today, and that was new business viability, which I've been seeing a lot of. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of like stems from this ability to iterate quickly, right? And if you look at how technology was previously built in like the VC world, right, which we're still in, but a lot of times you need a ton of capital up front to. The game is kind of like fake it until you make it, right? So and you need like a lot of these products need scale, and it needs engineering resources, and you need a ton of capital to do so. And if you have an idea that you have a lot of belief in, VCs are going to back that and take their bet, and hopefully 1,000x's, right? Yeah. But because the cost to actually develop and build these things is contracting right now, you don't need to be VC backed. And that's why you hear everybody, on YouTube or X talking about, these one person, $1 billion companies, right? Like that's the idea. There's truth to that, because like just your ability to, like, I personally, I'm in the process of building I've already built and launched one that I actually use for my clients, web app, like top to bottom. Like your ability to build a working product and like onboard clients or customers is far easier if you know what you're doing, or at least have some level of resources around you. And so what I think is interesting about that is because there's now not this like gating factor that it has to be a $1 billion idea to get VC money for that to even work. There's, multi-million-dollar ideas out there, $1 million idea out there that people can pursue, and it's not going to be this crazy huge business, but it's meaningful for them and the customers that they serve, right? And so it kind of unlocks, this segment, I think, of the market where solutions can be built that are technically sound, add value for very small niche groups of people. And it now opens up a ton of opportunity, right? So it's like, it's a very open, not to use Whitespace, but like that's where the name came from. It's like a white space to sort of play and operate. And, I think that's really interesting because it just is more, it allows us to do more. Right?
100%. I think, we're already seeing it. It's like this, this rise of the solopreneur and the proliferation of thousands and thousands of products that do a specific thing for a specific group of people. And all you need is you need some vision. And the vibe coding tools out there now allow you to get, some of our clients have vibe coded their way to revenue.
Yeah,
and they want to scale, and so they bring us in to help them.
That's a beautiful thing, right?
It's a beautiful thing because before no one even knew how to open up a code editor before. Yeah. You're non-technical people, how to open up a code. You don't need that anymore. You can vibe code that, right? Yes. And so, I like to play with the idea of the solopreneur unicorn. I will say this: that this is something that is still important, but I think this is good for the business world. And that is building a niche product is one thing, but building a company is a different thing, right? And so, just even in a niche product, you still have to do marketing, you have to do customer support, you have to do, handling payments and refunds, and there's still a lot of the admin work that you have to do when you're serving people, right? And so that part doesn't go away, and then. But that I think for the most part, solopreneurs can handle that, right? And we're seeing that. But when it comes to building a company, right, and you want to build like a real software product that's a B2B play or even a B2C play at scale, like that's a different beast. And there's a lot of work that still goes into building the company behind the product. And so what I think is happening though is people who want that work, who want to do that. Now the barrier to entry on the technological side is significantly lower, right? Because you can have a single engineer who's like highly capable, who can use these tools. Who you could start vibe coding, but then use these tools to evolve the product as you start generating revenue, and then that you're the business person in the company can go focus on scaling the business side of it.
I think that's right, and I think my hot take here would be that there's a lot of concern about like AI replacing jobs, replacing people. I think on the flip side of that, though, is it's creating a ton of opportunity. So I think the like landscape of where we're going is going to look a lot different in terms of how people work, what companies look like, right? I think the footprint of a company probably doesn't have to be quite as big. You don't need 1,000 people to run your startup or 600 people, right? Like you could do it with a team of 5, 10, 15, right? And then so if you have, it's almost like it fragments the footprint a little bit, and you have like smaller, maybe niche teams that can like build out impactful businesses, and it just kind of redistributes kind of like what that looks like. And I think that's interesting.
100%. This is the whole idea that I predicated building my company on. It's like the way that work is done has fundamentally shifted, and we've adopted that at the edge, and we continue to push that boundary, and so we have hyper specialized teams that are small, but we treat them more like a pool of capabilities instead of like this team is dedicated to this thing, right? Like you have someone is responsible for this, right? But that person can then lean on other people if they have capabilities or skill sets that they don't possess themselves. And so I think the way that work gets done has changed, and then the way that like a big part of that is the way that information and knowledge, context is passed internally within a company, right? And so I think the example that I talked about with the enterprise where, the traditional product owner role slows down the engineering process under traditional agile methodology, I think that goes away, right? So this world where we're worried about AI taking jobs, I mean, I think that's a real concern. The Industrial Revolution came along, jobs were lost,
It'll
right?
shift. It'll change.
It'll shift,
Yeah.
right? And I think in the short term, that's a painful shift.
Yes.
I think in the long term, though, the opportunity is boundless.
For sure.
And you basically, if you can imagine something, it is much easier to achieve that now, right? So Jensen Huang said, engineers aren't going to lose their jobs. Developers might, right? People who are responsible for like, plumbing, if you will, laying down code. But engineers, people who solve problems aren't going to lose their job. They actually are now amplified because they have more time to think strategically about the problem they're solving, right? So
it's redefining like the roles and responsibilities. Like what that used to be is no longer what it was. It's shifted and refined. It's probably for the best. Like, who wants to be running around, cleaning up tech debt?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. For a long time in my career, I struggled to articulate this concept, and it's become clear now because of this AI. And that was like, there's a difference between the engineer and the developer, and that is, problem solver versus like, let me write some code. And I struggled to articulate, like, for a long time, I've believed that for any company, a smaller team with expertise and specialists is better, right? For initial momentum, right? So you need to get something off the ground. You need to start scaling it. But then it comes to a point of maturity within any company.
Yeah.
And then you need maintenance mode, right? And I think those are different people in different roles. And I struggled to articulate that earlier in my career. I didn't necessarily have the language or maybe even the leadership exposure to articulate, but I could see the pattern. And now it's super crystal clear.
Yeah.
It's like you need people who can get something off the ground and they can move significantly faster. And then maintenance, those same people can do it because like that's almost effortless work now. So
I got to throw a curveball at you.
Do it.
We didn't talk about this earlier, but I'll elaborate on like where my thought on this was going. But we got to talk a little bit about CloudBot.
Oh my goodness.
Or like, I guess Moltbot or
CloudBot, Moltbot, OpenClaw. Yeah, the lobster. We call them the lobster.
The lobster. Yeah. What's your take on this? What's your experience of this so far? What's your opinion on this?
All right. So I'm gonna tell you what my exposure has been.
Okay.
All right. So last week I had heard about CloudBot.
Okay.
Right. And I don't remember how, but someone put it in my ear. And so I was talking to the internal team and I was like, hey, this thing. And they were like, that's a security nightmare. Stay away from it. And I was like, all right.
Not wrong.
All right. Yeah. I was like, you guys are on it. Good. Go team.
Yeah.
And then yesterday, my neighbor, he and I have been like chopping it up on AI. He's a derivative trader, right? So
Okay.
we've been chopping it up on AI, the capabilities of AI, the security concerns of AI. And he sent me this article yesterday, and it was on CloudBot, or OpenClaw now.
Okay, yeah.
And it was somebody in North Carolina gave it access to iMessage, and it sent out 500 like iMessages.
Oh my God.
And so I was like, yep. I was like, we opted to stay away from that a while ago.
Yeah.
But he was bringing up the concern, and he's not technical, right?
Right.
But he was bringing up the concern of agentic systems now can take real world actions, right? Autonomously, if you give it access, and it doesn't necessarily need, like, there's no explicit coding, right? Because it generates what it wants to do. It makes it up, right?
Yeah. No.
And he was just kind of highlighting.
Deterministic.
Right. It's not right. So he was just bringing up, like, there are real security concerns, with AI. So my take on it is, I mean, we saw this happen a year or two ago whenever I think maybe it was Grok went crazy on Twitter or OpenAI went crazy on Facebook. I think it's been a series of...
Somebody, there was a situation where somebody plugged in their own model into Twitter. It has its own like page, and it's bizarre.
Yeah.
And that's been going on for like a year, and then like Mark Andreessen gave him like funded the bot, and the bot could like trade and make money. It was like what is going on?
Yeah, like people are just they're experimenting. It's like what will happen? We don't know.
That's what I think is interesting. It's
Agreed.
And there's this Molt book thing. I haven't even looked at that. I was like, that looks like a nightmare. But yeah, I think that's, to me, is the interesting thing is people are experimenting. It's going to kind of go up and down and left and right, and I think out of that will come a more refined product, I would guess.
Yeah.
But I think it's really interesting.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna throw a curveball at you.
Okay.
All right. All right. So how much of that is thinking of this is a little philosophical, right? Like, but thinking of this as like the technological advancements that we're making as a society.
Yeah.
How much detriment, like even to society, is sustainable, is acceptable as the cost of doing business, the cost of to advance, versus how much should we put guardrails on it and prevent the speed of advancement or slow down the speed of advancement?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. I mean, you saw this early on, right? When our people's initial reaction was to regulate. We got to regulate. Got to lock it down. Change is hard, But I think like those two don't necessarily play nicely together. It's hard to have innovation and advancement, but at the same time try to control it. It's the same as, you know, the company example you shared, where it's like you're trying to apply Agile. Like, we're past it.
Yeah.
Like, let's move on and like let's see where this goes. That's scary, right? Especially the rate of change that everything with AI like has presented it's stunning, shocking, right?
Yes.
And even what we were just talking about, like you got these like bots like having their own conversations, and there's now like a social platform for them. Like, well, like what are we talking about, right? It's bizarre. But like I think that's how all this stuff sort of evolves. Like we say that we saw a lot of the same things in crypto for better or worse. Like I was never necessarily into that, but there's something that will emerge out of it. And I think you could probably look back at like the internet and like doing online payments, things like that today we look back and say like, oh yeah, that's just how that works.
Yeah.
Well, back then, no, that was like terrifying.
It was
right?
a mess. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you sort of need to go through like this unknown path to like feel it out and see what's going to work. There's going to be a ton of noise along the way. And a lot of that will fall away as you sort of like crystallize like, oh, this was the thing. And the same was true with the internet. Like there was so much buzz and like, you know, nonsense websites that were like unicorns, right?
Yeah.
But out of that, we have amazing, like could you imagine living without like the internet and like where technology is? And like, we're going to be saying the same thing about AI. And whether it's it's definitely not going to be in the form that as we know it is today, OpenClaw, whatever, these other tools. But there's pieces that I think gets found out in each of those experiments, and then they sort of like reconsolidate at some point and become a better product, right? I think the interesting thing about this whole OpenClaw thing is like, for me, my experience of it, just this ability to have it where you are and talk to it. I don't have to like go open a terminal to talk to, you know, like, right. I still get the power of that. You got to put in guardrails, but like just to have that ability to talk to it on my phone, I'm on Slack, it's on my computer, like it becomes interwoven into your life. Mm-hmm. And we're starting to see different variations of that, right? There's like, you know, of all the desktop apps, there's Claude Cowork. There's now like Claude Code in the desktop app. So they're trying to like expose it to more people. And I think that's the benefit that we see. So I think to answer your question, like, you know, it's hard to quantify what is the detriment.
Yeah.
Things are going to change.
Well, I think it's not that hard to quantify it. I think it's hard to quantify how much of it is acceptable.
Sure. Yeah. Hard to quantify how much is acceptable. I don't know that we have control over it, right? Like it's what we're good at as humans is adapting.
Yes, we are.
And like, that's what we have to do and adapt to get to like the best possible outcome.
Yes.
But to stop the outcome, I think is
a mistake.
Futile.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's Skynet. Let's not do that.
Fair.
I would say, you know, we definitely don't want to stop it, right? Like this advancement, you know, AI in general is like, it's great for us, right? It's the evolution of the species as Elon's trying to get to Mars and as we're trying to figure out how not to kill the planet, right? Like I think it's really good for that. Although this is definitely not helping. You know, all the data centers and then consuming all the power.
Sure, yeah. But hey, X with SpaceX or XAI, you know, they're going to move it all into space, right?
Yeah, right. Put all the nuclear power plants on the moon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's you know, I'm all for it. Like, I believe in the overuse of AI. And, you know, I think we must treat an existential threat as such. And that all like, you know, we spend $20,000 on a hammer for the military, right? Like, just make sure AI does spend that same budget on that. You know,
for sure.
Don't let AI take us out. I think we're pretty far away from that. You know, that's not quite far away from that. But I think the rest in between is gray area, and I think you know that's a individual government sort of decision, right?
Yeah.
So
I think it's useful to play out the scenarios and be thinking through all the possible permutations, like what could happen, to try to navigate those, but not necessarily like block it. I do think like the people that are probably much smarter than me, like in the depths of like some of these companies, are actively thinking about that. I think we've seen that progress, right? The safety measures that are being put in place. I would suspect that some of the risks that are out there are probably I think less about what people are talking about because it's more about the influence that it might even have on the psychology of people. And I think that's a really interesting angle because like, there's these different, even if I'm just talking about like OpenClaw again, like the way that you interact with that as opposed to talking to Claude Code, I was listening to someone else talk about this, it becomes different because it starts to, it has this idea of memory. It's really just file search. But
yeah, we all know memory is a bunch of files somewhere.
It starts to change kind of like the interaction. And then that, to me, what it brings to my mind is like the movies like Her or like some of these where you start to develop these relationships. So I think like those are the kinds of things that we need to be really mindful of as we like, navigate through this, because I think that is a new thing that we're probably not quite as prepared for. And that is going to evolve quickly. Do I think AI is going to become sentient? I haven't seen that yet. Like
we're ways away. That's a ways away.
I'm working with these tools routinely, and they do some dumb things.
They're not that smart.
They're not that smart. Like I don't see the path to that yet. Is it a good question? Sure. Is it something that would we want to block that? Yes.
Yes.
Right.
100%.
So it's things we need to keep in mind and try to like anticipate. But until then, it's like we're getting a lot of value out of the advances that this is enabling. And I think that's really what should be the focus on. So like proceed cautiously, I think would be my motto.
Yeah.
But keep pushing and keep learning.
I'm a like proceed at full steam kind of guy. Let's go. Like let's see what we can do. I don't even know that we want to block AI from being sentient. I do think though, just like, history has told us in humanity, we tend to want to control the things. Mm-hmm. And so I think we should be able to control it, Mm-hmm. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. That's a fine line.
Yeah.
Because like, if it becomes sentient and becomes wild, like uncontrollable, then like you're in trouble, right? It can do what it wants. So neither here nor there, that's all philosophical, but like I am interested. You said something that was really interesting, and that is the psychological impact that AI has. Like people have, they use it as, strategically, I use it as a thought partner, right? Mm-hmm. I explore ideas with it, right? Mm-hmm. For anything really, mm-hmm. right? Like I use it to learn, right? Hypothetical testing. But there are people who use it as like a companion or as a therapeutic, relief. And so, and if you're not careful, it'll tell you it learns your patterns.
It can be self-fulfilling.
It can be self-fulfilling, right? And so you've got this sort of echo chamber in your bedroom at night, at the lights off, and you start believing, just like social media does, right? Like its algorithm is designed to feed you what mm-hmm. you want to see, what you interact with the mm-hmm. most, right? And so AI, I think, is a little more dangerous because social media was like all human-generated content. And mm-hmm. there's dark sides of humanity you have to watch out for too. But like AI could go off the rails in a scenario like that. And compound what it reinforces in your own mind mm-hmm. over years. And that could lead to some pretty erratic human behavior and beliefs.
I think we've already seen examples of this. And I think that the human side of that is you become trusting mm-hmm. into what you're being told and you start to take it for truth, right? Yep. The model's response, right? I have this debate with my wife all the time where we use it for like medical advice for the kids.
Yeah.
And it's like, like she'll read it one way and I'll read it the other way. And I'm like, and then she'll start chatting with it and then like she'll get it to like what she's like, no, we gotta go to the hospital. I'm like, no, he's got a cold. The kid's sick. So there's like self-fulfilling prophecy. And like, I think the other interesting side of that is the questions that you're asking it, right? You're leading it somewhere. Mm-hmm. Your line of questioning, right? So it's not unbiased. And so far the models have been, they somewhat objective. They're somewhat rooted in truth, but I think, that is the thing. Like you can still there's maybe many sides to that truth. Or like when something's on a spectrum of like, how safe should you be? Like, did we take the kid to the hospital or not?
Right.
Like, is it a big concern? Or is it like, no, this is pretty typical, but if you want to be be really on the other side and be precautious, you could go do that. It's those spectrums where there's like gray zone where I think it's challenging to suss out the truth. And I think that's like a blind spot maybe.
I think this is why it's absolutely critically important to have discernment, some level of judgment mm-hmm. based on your human experience about what is feeding you. Mm-hmm. I was talking to a buddy of mine last week actually, and he was talking about the importance of that when you're making decisions, after having conversations with AI it is not, like you said, you lead it, it'll tell you what you want to hear and it'll reinforce your own beliefs. And so you have to ask it, you have to talk with it as if it doesn't really know. And so you have to direct it in a way to get an object. I don't think they're objective. I don't think the models are objective. I think they're trained, they're trained on all text of humanity, text, images, right? Yeah. And like, there's a lot of humanity that's not been objective, like
fair,
right?
Yeah.
And so I think it has, predetermined, and we don't know what the open AIs and
the inputs are.
We don't know what their weights are when they train these things. So we don't know how they get it to perform the way it does. All we do is see the result, and so we don't know the underlying biases. But we have seen earlier, 2 years ago, a year ago, some of the biases come out, right? And so because of the input bias of humanity, there's a ton of bias throughout humanity, and models have been trained on that. So I think they have they have tried to mitigate that as much as possible based on our culture, right? These companies are here in the US, and so I think they have tried to align them better in an objective way to our culture. But then there's the rest of the world who are using these models, and their cultures are different, and they have their own biases. So that's a big gap, I think, in what these models can do. Is like they don't account for the dynamic nature of humanity,
For sure. And yeah, I mean, I think in order to get the most out of them, there almost has to be like a training in place of just like how to interact. And it's such the wild west right now. Like that's like the refinement that like hasn't kind of like emerged. And so, yeah, it's just until it matures, it's just going to be continuing to experiment and see what comes out. And bad things are going to happen, good things are going to happen, right? And like we'll like somewhere find like I think a better path with it overall.
So I had this conversation with my wife, I think probably a couple weeks ago, about we're logical, or we want to be logical beings, right?
Yeah.
And we were just talking about this philosophically, and I was like, well, logic's a pure function, right? If you put bad data in to a logical function, you'll get a bad answer, right? A bad result, because like it's not, nothing is magical about logic. It's like how you break it down. And so her and I were talking about how to talk with the models, because we use it, right, for everything, for figuring out how parenting strategies, how to handle, like, we have 4 kids, so we're like, help us.
Sleep schedules yet? I'm trying to figure that out still.
No, it has not. There are a lot of books out there that you can read that will only help you after you've already broken down.
Yes, yeah.
But we were talking about that, and I was like, well, one of the things I like to do with it is I like to ask it to challenge its own assertion, right? All right, well, tell me why that might not be true, right? The thing that you just told me. So I can, as a human, can then inject my own discernment in the direction to take the model when I'm chatting with it.
If anything, I think, one of the many things that will come out of this is like this focus or emphasis on like the thinkers, like deep thought, like the process of like your ability to have this sounding board is like pretty profound.
Yes.
And I think like, I don't know, as an individual, I feel like I've evolved in just like how I approach problems, how the questions I ask, the things I look for. And so just like having that sounding board is incredibly powerful, because in the absence of that, before you just kind of like, I think that's right. And you just go.
Yeah. See what happens.
And then you don't figure out for another like 2-3 months. Like we were talking about hiring before. It's like, if you can answer that question and do that upfront work because you have the sounding board up front, have a more extensive process, like you're going to get a better outcome. You're going to have a better hire. That you don't have to like wait 3 months to like figure out down the road because you made a bad decision because you didn't have all the upfront thought and weighing the pros and cons and asking the reflective questions on it that you would be able to do now. So that's a big thing.
That's interesting. I did this very thing.
Okay.
In my hiring process.
Okay.
I said, here's how the conversations have been going, and I am hiring for this role, and AI was like, red flags all the way through. Don't hire this person. And I was like, thank you, AI. I also picked up on those red flags. And then I was like, well, but what about for temporary relief? Because like I want to make this strategic hire temporarily to come in and put some structure in place. And like, this is not, so what about a 1099 contractor type hire to come in and do that strategic work? And it was like, that's the only scenario in which I would recommend. And so I did it, and it worked out exactly like I said it was. And it was actually beneficial for both of us.
Yeah.
We were both happy with it, right? Yeah. Like, and so I would not have, I mean, I sensed the red flags, and I was like,
you wanted to ask those additional questions and found a useful outcome, but like a different direction. It probably would have been like pretty binary before, like pass on, keep the process going,
right?
And then you get another couple months of hiring and interviews and whatever else. But.
Right. All right. So I'm curious about how I don't know much about real estate, right?
Sure,
but I am curious about how you are helping real estate companies using AI.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it like I look at sort of any business, and I think the big problem for a lot of people out there is, like, how do I use AI? How is it going to bring me more revenue?
Yeah.
Right? Like, at the end of the day, no one really cares about AI. It's like fun and exciting, a ton of headlines around it. But like, as a business owner and operator, I just want the business to work. I want to make money. I want to grow. I want to scale. Right. Yeah. And so just given sort of like my background and having been in the space for a while and my technical background, it was just a great opportunity for me to like solve those problems. Like, as an engineer, like I'm a problem solver. I like figuring out, how do we make something better? How do we improve it? So in the real estate space, it's the same thing, right? Most of these companies that I work with, a lot of fix and flippers, wholesalers, investors. I was just talking to a guy that does like short-term funding for deals. They're all trying to solve the same thing, which is generally sales, marketing, operations. That's really it. Like depending on the type of client, customer retention, things of that nature. So then the question is like, okay, how does AI fit in? And everything that we said before is like, it's not going to solve the business. Like, if you have a bad business, you have a bad process, AI is not, like, that's actually not what you should be doing right now. Yep. Like, what you should be doing is like getting a sound team in place, getting the right procedures in place, and making sure that all works really well. Where I help a lot of business owners like leverage AI and technology is just, how do we improve the existing already good business and operations? So like, it's more of like an optimization play, if anything. Like, how do you scale? How do you get more throughput? How do you remove bottlenecks? Generally, what that looks like is it's honestly usually a function of the people in the business, right? So it's like, how the tasks that people used to do very manually, you can solve with either, and it's not always AI, by the way.
Right. No, exactly.
Sometimes it's just like an automation and just like, hey, have you heard of APIs? Like, just like get these two systems talking to each other, and I'm going to take 20 hours of work out of your team's team. Yeah. So a lot of times it's just like helping understand what's working, what's not, and then helping solve the problems. In the cases where AI is the right tool, in my experience, the best sort of applications are around taking unstructured data, transforming that into like actionable data. And there's many forms of that, but whether it's analyzing calls or how the teams are doing, or like even the CRM, people's CRMs are usually a mess, right? So like, so how do you suck all that in and like actually get some insights into it and then synthesize it? Because like a lot of teams will, we got a database or we have reports and I get the report. Like, do you look at it? No, nobody ever looks at it. Yeah. How do you actually like take that a step further? And it's like, what are the 3 most impactful things that I need to do today that are going to move the business forward, right? So if you can use these tools to close that gap, that's where it becomes really, really impactful. And then I think the last one is probably just like speed to execution, right? I think the bottleneck for most businesses is speed. So if you can do more with the same headcount faster, like, you're going to win.
Yep.
And so if you can give the team the tooling to do so, I think that's where a lot of the optimization comes from, right? So the first thing I tell most teams is like, hey, you just need to get your team using these tools. Get your company a subscription, get them comfortable with whatever it is. It could be Claude, it could be OpenAI, like whatever you guys like. A lot of it's whatever your flavor is.
Yeah.
Because for all the reasons we were just talking about around asking better questions, getting to better answers, synthesizing more information where the team can like then go make an informed decision to take an action, like that alone is going to like transform most businesses. And then it's like, you can get into like, you build your own custom app, right? And like a lot of teams have their own internal processes. And so now they have this like capability at their fingertips where they could literally either vibe code it or hire a team like yours, or they could solve these really bespoke niche problems for their business at a relatively low cost.
Yeah.
And they have that as a capability in order for their team to like work more effectively.
100%. Like using AI to make better decisions, I think is and I would encourage people who are in business today to go and have these strategic conversations with a model, right? Like where should I get started? What are help me identify my constraints? Yeah, and you might already know them, but you can have a strategic conversation with AI in an hour about given how we're operating today, if I want to make a real impactful needle moving decision, right? Like where should I focus, right? And so one of the things that we do in similar in that vein is we help companies figure out, one, do they need AI? Should they use AI? Is it APIs? Is it just automations? Right. And usually there's a lot of automations and AI piece to help pull out information that enables the automation. Yeah. That's a lot of what we're seeing, patterns that we're seeing in like mid-market companies who are looking to process optimize. And so there's almost always a little bit of AI in there, but a lot of it is just like now you can unlock automation better, right? And so so being able to make those decisions faster and increasing the throughput of the team, I agree 100%. Yeah. That's so. Do you have any examples of that you can talk about here of impact that you've made?
Well, I'll share one other sort of like real sort of example, which is I think the benefit it provides is, the way I think about it is like you can get basically enterprise grade solutions at like a small and mid-sized business.
Yep.
And like one thing I recently built out for a client was essentially an entire like data ETL pipeline.
Yep.
Which was previously like you got the data engineering team, you have like the engineers that need to put it all together, you have a BI team that's going to build all the reporting, and like literally you can build like an AI agent that'll build that from start to finish, suck in all the data, build the pipeline, build the data model, dump it, and like you don't need to know the interworkings of any of that, and the output of that is like better insights for the company.
100%.
Whereas before, people are kind of lost in their platforms, their CRMs, the data's kind of everywhere. Like they just don't know. They're like running out of Google Sheets. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
But like now these capabilities are exposed. So I think those are the big things. In terms of like client impacts. I mean the big things we're after, like my guys are trying to get contracts, right? And so what I help them, there's like really sort of like two lines of business that we sort of cater to. One's like direct mail automation, right? Where we use AI in the tooling of what we build for them so that we can deliver quality service like very quickly. So they don't necessarily see the front facing side of that, but our ability to basically take large data sets, do the segmentation, build out the campaigns, automate everything top to bottom, and then also provide all the data and reporting. That's all like AI from my team that built that out and is able to deliver that in a fraction of the time of like anywhere else they'd be able to do that at a much lower cost. So that's number one in terms of just our ability to provide 4 or 5x ROAS. If you're not in marketing, that's return on spend. But basically like every dollar in, they're getting $4 or $5 out, right? So that is like the main offering that we generally cater to. And then on the so that's Remail Direct. On the Whitespace Solutions side, it's a lot of like the AI tooling to allow small teams to operate more quickly, right? So we do a lot of things around, it's AI automation, system integration, things that we talked about before, lead scoring, prioritization. So it's like optimization in terms of serving up the right leads at the right time to the team, and then providing better coaching, scoring, feedback on like how did calls go, where did you go right, where did you go wrong, in order for like the team to like self-improve in terms of like how they're doing their job over time. So that's more like on the business like optimization, like integration side.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, in case anybody's interested, how can they get in touch with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm getting on X a little bit more. You can find me, Jason Macht, or check out either of our sites. You can find me usually on Whitespace Solutions.
I enjoyed the conversation.
Looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, man. All right, it's a wrap.